So, hey everybody, welcome to Films and Fermentation, episode 69. We should have did a.
Hey, we may have 12-year-olds listening, so let's watch.
We should have did a Bill and Ted retrospective tonight since that's their favorite number. So this is episode 69. Welcome to Films and Fermentation, a movie and alcohol podcast. I'm Leo.
I'm Kevin.
I'm Mike.
We're three friends who like to talk shit about movies while getting shit-faced. In this episode, we are doing the unthinkable. We are recasting the classic 1984 comedy Ghostbusters.
We're going
if you're angry about that, you can send your emails to draxzir@gmail.com.
Yes. My idea.
So as I said, we are recasting. We're actually borrowing this out of the book of the Recast the 2.0 podcast. I reached out to them for their blessing, and they said go for it. They'd love to see how this turns out. So thanks, guys, for letting us borrow your gimmick for the night. So the original movie, Ghostbusters, starred comedy icons Bill Murray, Harood Ramos, Dan Akroyd, Ernie Hudson, Rick Moranis, Sigourney Weaver, and so forth. If the film were made today, if the film were made today in 2022, who would we cast? For the purposes of this episode, we are ignoring the 2016 reboot and the sequel, Ghostbusters Afterlife. We are simply focusing on the 1984 original Ghostbusters.
Don't forget you could even say 1989 Ghostbusters 2, but we're avoiding the villain.
Yeah, we're avoiding the villain. Just the main cast.
No Vigo.
No Vigo. Vigo! It's Vigo.
He's camera shy.
Don't forget to drop us an email at filmsandfermentation@gmail.com or visit us at linktree.com/filmsandfermentation to find all of our social media and podcast links, including a link to Good Pods. We are now on the Good Pods site as well as Spotify, iTunes, etc. Gentlemen, what are we drinking this evening?
Just a second.
Mm-hmm.
We're on Good Pods. Does that mean we're a made podcast?
Yes, we're a made podcast. We're Good Pods. Good Pods is one of the...
Hey, I watched Casino for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, we're not going to pop anybody's eye out tonight.
No.
Good Pods is one of the more popular podcast platforms like Spotify and Apple, and we are on them for the first time.
Nice.
And we've already got a few followers on there, and they have a... besides the analytics, one of the things I like about Good Pods is they actually have a top list. So they have like top 100 podcast, top 100 indie podcast, top comedy podcast, top movie, all that stuff. So if we get enough people listening to the shows, there's a possibility we can make it into the top 100 one day.
Nice.
That's a nice little plug. So I'm happy that we're on that platform now. Yeah. So, Mike, this is your idea for this show tonight, so why don't you go first with your drink?
Well, I didn't have with everything going on, I really didn't get to find a drink to go with tonight, so I just went to my fridge of various beers and got me, from Recasting Brewing Company, the Strawberry Wheat.
Nice.
Ooh, those are good.
I like strawberry.
Those are very good beer. Yeah.
I just drank.
Lancaster Brewery has a lot of good beers.
Mm-hmm. I just drank my strawberry wheat from Hidden Sands last night with my dinner. I like the strawberry wheat there. I killed a bunch of those crab cakes and footballs that you gave me. I think I had like 4 of them in the last couple of days.
Well,
they're pretty good.
5.
Yeah, they're pretty good. They're for an IPA, they're not too bitter.
Yeah.
I always say, like, when I taste an IPA that I kind of like, that it reminds me of Kensinger, because that's like the one IPA I can really tolerate. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty close to that. It's pretty good. So thank you for that.
No problem.
Kev, what you got going on?
So I initially wanted to do something fun, so I looked at Ghostbusters cocktails, and I'm staying at my father's house this week, and his assortment of spirits is rather limited. So things that they required, like green
Contra.
Yeah, no, it was something else. There was one. It was called the Ghostbuster. It was gin. It was lime juice and green something, and obviously he wouldn't have that. And then I looked up something else, which was like a alcoholic ecto cooler, but it required peach schnapps and Midori, and I don't. That's obviously not here either. So I figured I was going to do gin and tonic because spirit, ghost spirits, and I drank that rather quickly, and now I'm out of ice. So going into my father's alcohol fridge, I have Corona, which is the only thing the man drinks, and that's okay. It's what he likes, and you got to stick with what you like.
That's because he only drinks regular beer.
That's all. That's right. It's just regular beer.
Well, so. I didn't disappoint you guys tonight. I went themed. I got my mixed drink here, so it looks really milky.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to see on screen. It looks blue, but it's actually green. It just doesn't.
It's hazy.
Across. Yeah, it's a hazy green color. So I found a drink online called the Slimer. It's called the Slimer. It's orange juice, lime juice, vodka, and blue curacao. And so good. When you mix the orange and the blue together, it gets a little bit of a greenish color. But because it's also orange juice, it comes out a little like hazy. So it's like it looks like slime. It really does. But when you drink it, it tastes like high C ecto cooler. I drank it, and I immediately had a flashback to my childhood.
You see, my parents would allow me to get the Ghostbusters toys growing up, and I had them all. I had the Ecto one. I had the Firehouse. I had practically everything. Do you know what they never let me play with? The slime, the stuff that you were supposed to slime the characters with, because my mother did not want to have to take it out of carpet. So,
I had some at one point, and after I got it on my shirt and in my hair, I wasn't allowed to have it anymore. But the Ecto Cooler was one of my favorite drinks growing up as a kid, man. I remember drinking it while watching the cartoon.
The real Ghostbusters, right?
The real Ghostbusters, yes. Not the fake me out one with the gorilla. So, Mike, go ahead.
This day in film history.
I actually changed it to this week in film history because the one fact on there that I gave you happened earlier this week, but I didn't want to ignore it. It's an important fact to me.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Not a problem. But I usually pick things throughout the week anyway. Still say
yeah.
RoboCop was released in theaters on June 17th, 1987. This is the 35th anniversary now.
The 35th anniversary of RoboCop.
I just watched that and RoboCop 2 yesterday.
Really?
AMC had them both on back to back, and then it went to the Terminator. It was a lot of gun-toting cyborgs, going on yesterday on AMC.
It's been a while since I watched RoboCop, but I remember watching it right after watching the Films That Made Us episode on the making of it.
Mm-hmm.
That was a really great episode of the Films That Made Us, because that was a crazy process to get that movie made. And plus, Paul Verhoeven is a certified maniac. His movies are so insane to begin with. And, it doesn't matter how old RoboCop gets, I will always buy it for $1.
Poor man.
My cousin Gino always says every movie would be better if it had RoboCop in it. His wife made him watch 27 Dresses with Katherine Heigl, and he's like, "This movie was terrible, but you know what? It made it better."
RoboCop.
He says about every movie, and I can't disagree. I think RoboCop would make most movies better.
The only thing I want to say about RoboCop is that poor man.
That poor man. Yeah. That poor man. What's the second fact you got there, Mike?
My second fact, and by doing the math, tells me this is the 70th anniversary of this film.
Mm-hmm.
In 1952, The Quiet Man, film directed by John Ford and starring John Wayne and Maureen O'Hara, is released in the UK.
They released it about 3 or 4 months too late.
I know, right? You would think that's like a March release. But also, it's like, wow, 70 years.
Yeah.
70th anniversary. Jesus. Still holds up. Still holds up. If you can look past it, if you look past the domestic battery, it still holds up.
I was going to say, the domestic battery might be a little much. There's
a stick so you can beat the girl.
Well, that was the old woman who said it, though.
Here's what I think a lot of people, younger people, would miss out on is the understanding of a dowry. You know, when you get married, and if you're unfamiliar with that tradition, it's an old, outdated tradition. But if you're unfamiliar with it, then you're not going to understand why so much of what goes on in the movie is important to one of the characters.
It's like a contract.
It is. It really is, and it's like you're going to be siding with John Wayne, which everybody does anyway. But it's like, no, you're missing her side. You need to hear it. So
yeah, she needs her furniture.
She does.
What's the thing the guy says?
I need my fortune.
When they the drunk guy walks in the bedroom and sees the broken bed, and he's like, "Oh, the impetuousness," or something like that, something along those lines. It's a great scene.
I can't think of it right now. I like how they were commenting on his sleeping bag. It's a sleeping bag. Come here, let me show it to you. You know, because they're not familiar with the sleeping bag.
Mm-hmm. What's your fun drink fact for tonight, Mike?
I have an American craft brewing destination. This is Allagash Brewing Company, Portland, Maine. Allagash was founded in 1995 by Rob Todd and opened with only one beer on tap, the Allagash White. It's a Belgian wit beer, hazy and brewed with unmalted wheat, coriander, and orange peel. Today, their lineup has expanded substantially with saisons, triples, and other Belgian styles. All their beers are bottled conditioned with live yeast, and the brewery uses an ancient shallow vessel called Cool Ship for cooling some of their spontaneously fermented beers.
I like their brewery. We went up last summer. We went camping in Maine, and on the way home we stopped in Portland, and the brewery was great. That was still very iffy with COVID, so there was no inside dining. Everything was set up outside, but they had the full beer outside, and we couldn't do a tour, which is what I would have loved to have done. You know, but Allagash White is a great go-to. You know, it's like you're looking at the beer list, and if you see that and nothing else stands out as I want to try that, like a craft or whatnot, going for Allagash White is perfect.
I think Allagash White is a lot like Blue Moon. Very similar style wheat beer. So it's like, yeah, you don't see that on the menu, but you know you won't go wrong with the Allagash.
Right.
I've never been to the brewery, but I've had a few of their beers, and I know that their main one, the Allagash White, is the one that I like the best. So, last week on films and fermentation. So last week was the debacle of an episode where we kept timing out after 40 minutes because my Zoom account had expired. So what was funny was I thought, like, in editing it, this is going to be a complete nightmare. But then after listening to it, it wasn't that bad. There was the one little moment where I talk about how like pissed off I am that we keep running out of time. But overall, I feel like I managed to seam it together pretty nicely.
Well, I think it was more the being pissed off that you forgot to record.
Yeah, I forgot to record in the one segment. We kept making jokes about it, but yeah, it was a little frustrating. But thanks to anybody who listened to that episode, despite how painful it was for us to record that night. But overall, like I think it turned out okay. I thought of some more movies that we could have put on the list last week for movies with great final scenes, like Fight Club. And a few other. There were like a few that like popped in my head, and I had asked people on Twitter to give some suggestions. I haven't really gotten anything back yet, but I was like, there were enough that we missed that if we ever wanted to do that as an episode again later on, like we definitely could.
Okay.
Yeah, because there were definitely more than a few that I thought of as I was listening to the show. What do we have on here now? We were talking about this on the mini pod last night. The Disney convention recently, where they premiered some of the new shows and stuff.
D23.
D23, and I saw the leaked trailer for The Mandalorian season 3. You got all your Grogu that you can hope for. You got all your Mando that you can hope for. There was a brief little scene where I'm pretty sure I saw Boba Fett. There was a battle scene that was leaked in which there were a whole bunch of Mandalorians jumping off of a drop ship. And it looked like a pretty badass scene. There were a few Mandalorians that showed up in one scene that I think are from one of the animated shows. I don't know for certain because I've never watched the animated shows, so you guys know that better than me. Mm-hmm. But I know that there were a few characters they haven't introduced yet in live action. Okay. That I think were teased in that. And there was also a scene where he arrives on Mandalore, and Bo-Katan is sitting on the throne of Mandalore because she's like in contention for ruling it, even though he has the Darksaber.
Right.
So it was a lot of like setting up things from last season and teasing where they're going from now.
So they're bringing Sabine in finally. They're going to finally bring Sabine in.
Yeah, I think that's who they were showing in the teaser trailer.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know all the characters' names, but
she's from
and
Rebels.
I did see a teaser for Ahsoka Tano.
Mm-hmm.
This is very short, and I couldn't hear anything, but I did see one of them was leaked online as well.
Well, that's the thing is
that's a bunch of information that helps you, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, they haven't released anything officially yet, so all you're going to see are things that people like filmed with their phones and put on YouTube before Disney shut it down.
Yep.
I also saw a trailer for The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, which is going to be on, I think, Netflix.
Prime. Yeah, no, Prime.
Yeah, or it's Amazon Prime. Yeah, okay. So I saw it. It's supposed to be the story of the battle that leads up to the original defeat of Sauron. So they got like younger actors playing Elrond. Some of like the characters who live forever have younger actors playing them.
Okay.
Because it's supposed to be the battle that's like 4,000 years before the events of the Lord of the Rings or whatever it is.
Throw it into the fire. No.
Yeah, exactly. There's a young actor playing Isildur. There's one playing Elrond. So it's like the prequel, basically. It's basically like the Silmarillion, but they're not calling it the Silmarillion. It's the Rings of Power.
Well, the Silmarillion was really slow and boring.
Well, that's also I think that's even further back than what this is supposed to be.
It's like
this is like
skills.
Yeah, if you remember at the beginning of Fellowship, they talk about the 9 rings. Yep. And then like 4 were given to the dwarves, and so many were given to the elves and the humans. So I think this is the story of those 9 rings, and then how they eventually become slaves to the one ring.
Mm-hmm.
So it looked pretty interesting. I don't know. I'd probably watch it just because I feel like I need like a Game of Thrones fix, and that looks like the closest thing I can get.
Well, if you can,
unless you talk about the House of Dragon, unless you talk about the House of the Dragon, which also released a trailer this week. I just can't get over the 11th Doctor playing a Targaryen.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. He's got the long white hair, but he still pulls out the sonic screwdriver. When he needs to.
He still likes to eat fish sticks and pudding. So that's all I had. I didn't really have that many notes from last week. I was surprised because I thought I'd have a lot more after all the nonsense that we went through making that episode.
As of the release of or as of the filming of the podcast, we have Disney Plus going into a risque area. Mm-hmm. We have Deadpool 2, and Logan. All coming out on Disney Plus.
They've also recently added Daredevil, Punisher, and all of the other like Defenders series to Disney Plus as well.
Series,
Now I have on my Disney Plus account, we have 2 sign-ins. My wife has one. Hers is the you just click on it and go in, children's friendly one. And then my account, you have to put in a passcode so that you can watch the R-rated material that's on Disney Plus.
Oh, I haven't done that yet.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can set up you can set it up so that like kids wouldn't have access to anything that's, adult considered. So, which is weird because I always thought since they owned Hulu that they would just put the stuff on Hulu, but I guess they want everything archived in one site.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, let's get to our main segment.
Yeah.
So we are back. We took a little break there so that we can refill our drinks for the main segment. The main segment tonight, as we said, is recasting Ghostbusters. This is a risky subject here. Such a beloved classic. And we see how well the 2016 reboot was welcomed. So,
well, we're not rebooting. We're just taking actors from now to do the same movie.
We are theoretically recasting the film.
Yes. Right.
Okay.
If they made the movie today, who would play the parts?
Yes.
So
we do not necessarily want a redo. We're just saying, like, if they were to create the idea now.
Yeah. So we decided that we were going to recast based on certain characters. So we are recasting the main characters, Peter Venkman, who was originally played by Bill Murray. Winston Zeddemore, who was originally played by Ernie Hudson. Egon Spangler, who was originally played by Harold Ramos. Ray Stantz, originally played by Dan Akroyd. Dana Barrett, originally played by Sigourney Weaver. Louis Tully, originally played by Rick Moranis. Janine Melnitz, who was originally played by, what was her name?
Annie Potts.
And villain Walter Peck, who was originally played by William Atherton, who was a kind of go-to for dickish villains in the 80s.
Yes, he was.
And then as a bonus, I recast Gozer. I couldn't tell you the actress who played her in the original film. I can tell you that in Ghostbusters Afterlife, Olivia Wilde plays her. But she is not who I chose for my recast. So, Mike, this was your idea again. So why don't you do first? Are we going to start? You want to start with Peter Venkman, I'm assuming?
Let's start with Peter.
Okay, who is your Peter? So let me say this. For my particular recast, I went with only actors who are alive and who were within like 10 to 20 years of the actor when they played the character and of other like actors in the cast, so that they all kind of like mesh together a little bit.
Yeah, more or less. I went with
more or less.
I think could play the part. Close to that.
I mean,
the original cut did.
I did that too, but I think I made it more difficult for myself than I needed to.
So for Peter Venkman, who was played originally by Bill Murray, I went with Christopher Pratt. Pratt.
So you went with Star-Lord.
Oh, Star-Lord. Well, he's got his comedic chops,
Mm-hmm.
and I can see, pretty much Star-Lord to me is just Peter Venkman in space.
In space. Okay. I think he's probably around the same age that Bill Murray was when he played the role too. Yeah, I could probably see Chris Pratt. I thought Chris Pratt too for like maybe the Ray character as well, Dan Aykroyd's character. So I'll go next. I chose for my Peter Venkman Robert Downey Jr.
I get that.
Yeah.
I feel like Robert Downey Jr. is sort of Bill Murray. Bill Murray, we're cool enough to play Iron Man.
You can see it with the smartass remarks that he does as Tony Stark as Iron Man.
Yeah, but also thinking about that, not that I picked him this way, but he could also play the straight man like Egon, though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I wouldn't want Robert Downey Jr. as my straight man. I feel like he's better as the acerbic, sarcastic guy. That's why I thought he was good as like Sherlock Holmes with Jude Law playing the straight man as Watson, you know. So I feel like he's kind of like that Bill Murray-ish type of humor.
Mm-hmm.
Kev, who did you have?
So it's funny we're all picking Marvel men. I chose Ryan Reynolds as a good Peter Venkman.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought
I gave him some serious thought for Ray, but I did not pick him for Ray.
I didn't think he was nerdy enough for Ray. I thought he was very, you know how he is with most of his movies. He's got that sarcastic, "Oh, really?" That kind of attitude, which kind of fit the Peter Venkman role.
Mm-hmm. There was a website I found that does like fan recasting of films, and I went on there to see what like other people were kind of like thinking for this, and I saw Ryan Reynolds' name a lot.
Yeah,
and across the board, like they had him down for Venkman, they had him down for Ray. I think I even see him down there for like Egon at one point. I'm like, I don't know, Ryan Reynolds is a little too charismatic, I think, to play Egon. Like Egon, you have to be,
he's a little too extroverted.
Yeah, you need somebody that's a little more like who's funny, but like in a subtle way.
In a quirky, in a quirky
way. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's all three of us made some pretty interesting choices there. That would definitely be a Hollywood studio debate. Like those three actors, I'm sure would probably be on like the studio exec's desk.
Mm-hmm.
Who do we want to go to next?
Well, okay, maybe let's go away from the Ghostbusters. Go to Dana, because
Dana
the
Barrett?
the Dana Venkman relationship was also something I took into consideration when thinking about who I wanted for Dana and who I wanted for Peter, and having those two actors or that actor and actress mesh.
I also went with the Dana with you have to have a taller actress, especially when she's floating in the air. She's all legs in that floating in the air thing. You gotta go. Have to keep that iconic scene together as well.
Okay.
So, Kev, is Kev brought it up like Kev?
You want to go backwards? Okay.
Well, you brought it up, so why don't you go?
Sure. So this is a little, off to the side, but I thought Rosario Dawson.
Okay.
Because she can kind of give it as well as she takes it. She's a very attractive woman. And she can kind of like that repertoire between her and what I think Ryan Reynolds could hash out would really be something worth looking at.
I like that, because that's I tried that with other characters. I tried to diversify the cast a little bit,
right?
But I didn't think to do it with Dana Barrett. That was a cool choice.
Yeah, I think of her.
Dawson, so.
I think of her in Clerks 2. I think of her in. What was the other one I was thinking of?
She's not a stranger like quirky sci-fi either, because she did do the Men in Black too.
Right.
So.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Mike, what did you have?
So I went with someone who was not comedic, because of course Sigourney Weaver wasn't known for her comedic acting. So I went with someone who could play the part and has a really large range of acting. Charlize Theron. At 5'10.5" she's got some legs too.
And I think she's I would say she's probably like a modern day Sigourney in a way.
Yeah.
She was in an Alien film.
Yeah.
She was in Prometheus.
Yeah, she was in the Alien film.
Yeah, she does have a wide range.
You saw her badass side in Mad Max.
Yeah. And she does have a comedic side. She was in A Million Ways to Die in the West with Seth MacFarlane.
Yes, she was.
And actually was pretty funny in that. And she's done a couple guest roles on like Family Guy and Eeyweirville and things like that. So she does have a little bit of comedic range. No, I like that choice. That's a good choice. She didn't even dawn on me one bit. And I'm like, I feel bad. I didn't think of Charlize Theron. I went through three actresses for this before I settled on the one who I settled on. I started with Margot Robbie just because I love Margot Robbie. And then I'm like, she's too pretty. She's just way too pretty. Like, nothing against Sigourney Weaver. Sigourney Weaver is a very attractive woman, but she wasn't overly attractive. She was attractive enough to be out of Bill Murray's league,
Well, that's why I also with Sherry Theron.
Mm-hmm.
She's gorgeous, but she can also tone it down.
Exactly. And I don't know if Margot Robbie can tone it down.
No.
So then I went with Anne Hathaway. She's a taller actress, like you said. She's got the range. She can do comedy and drama.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure about the age difference between her and Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
So I went with somebody who is still younger than Robert Downey Jr., but not as young as Anne Hathaway would be. Somebody who was in like her 40s. So it was a little closer to his age. So I went with Amy Adams.
Okay.
I decided to gingerify my my Dana Barrett. So yeah, she's not an older actress now, but she's older than Anne Hathaway, so she fits the age range that I'm looking for. She's done drama, she's done comedy, she's attractive. Not so attractive that you would, not believe if she toned it down a little bit that she still wasn't attractive. So yeah, that is who I am going with. I'm going with my Amy Adams pick. I have my picture here for her.
Yeah.
So all right. So okay, so Kevin chose one, Mike chose one.
That's your turn, Lee.
I'm going to choose one. I am going to go back to the main four Ghostbusters, but I'm not going to do the other two scientist characters. I'm going to go with that outsider character who joined them later in the film, Winston Zeddemore, who was originally played by Ernie Hudson, who was supposed to be played by Eddie Murphy.
And had a bigger role.
And had a bigger part. And when Eddie dropped out, they made it a little bit smaller. Unfortunately, I feel like Ernie gets the shaft a lot in the original film. But I thought, yeah, it's an interesting role. And honestly, he was the first person I thought of when I was recasting it. I felt like Winston was the easiest one for me to recast, because as soon as I thought about it, one name popped in my head, and I'm like, that's it. This is the person I'm casting. I'm not changing it. I'm going to share my screen so you can see who it is. I'm not going to tell you until I share my screen. But I think you all,
Dave Chappelle.
I think you're all going to be on board with this when you say it.
Yeah.
I went with my man Terry Crews.
Yeah.
Terry Crews is definitely a comedic actor. He's good at playing those like side characters too. Like he's not afraid to be like on like the sidelines of the film.
That's also how I came about mine too.
Okay.
Good. Who was a good sideline. He's not afraid to be sidelined, and who can play off a lot of different things. I went with Anthony Mackie.
Ah.
Okay.
So you went with the Falcon.
Went with the Falcon. I just because he can do that. I can see him going, I've seen shit that'll turn you white.
I can see Terry Crews saying that too.
Oh, that too, yeah.
So far, Mike, two of your characters are out of the MCU pool. Is this a Disney reboot?
No. Those are pretty much the ones I have.
So Kev, who do you got?
So again, I didn't intend to go to left field with many of mine, but I did want to mix it up a little bit. And I do recall Eddie Murphy being the original person intended for Winston, and I can only imagine how the movie would have changed a bit if it had been Eddie Murphy or somebody with that level of comedic chops, which Ernie Hudson just didn't have. So my choice for Winston Zeddemore is Ken Jeong. Ken Jeong.
That's pretty hilarious.
That would work out pretty well.
That's hilarious. Ken Jeong.
Well, let's segue into mine then.
Okay.
Because
let's go to Louis Tully.
Louis Tully.
Well, hold on for a second. I got a catchphrase with my Winston Zeddemore. Okay, it's not I seen shit that will turn you white. I got, but did you die?
I also think it'd still be funny to hear Ken Jeong say the words, I saw shit that would turn you white. So you want to do Louis Tully next, which is the Rick Moranis character.
Which I have as Ken Jeong.
Do you really?
Yes, I have Ken Jeong as my, because I can see him playing that character, the little nerdy guy.
Okay, I get that.
He's chasing Carrie Theron down the hallway.
Yeah, I saw him on that recasted website as well. Mentioned a lot for this particular character. I struggled on this one because I wanted somebody who was obviously comedically talented, like Rick Moranis was,
Right.
who's nerdy, but also kind of like you feel bad for him.
I want to interrupt here. I'll see you guys later. Have a good night.
So I originally chose Zach Galifianakis for this character, but I thought like he's too quirky.
Yeah.
And a little too over the top sometimes. So I went a different direction for my Lewis Tully, and I went with this man here. Charlie Day from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Okay.
I get that.
I get that.
I can see that. Yeah.
Somebody who's kind of like, he's funny, but quirky, little nerdy, little on the smaller stature. Because you know how like Rick Moranis was, like Sigourney Weaver towered over him.
Right.
Which was part of the comedy of it, especially when the Keymaster and the Gatekeeper hook up at the end. I don't know how tall Amy Adams is. I think she's a little bit on the shorter side, so it might not be as funny aesthetically, but I think he would play the Rick Moranis role pretty well. Originally, it was supposed to be John Candy in the role.
Oh, well, that would have worked too.
Well, he wanted to play the role with a German accent for some reason.
The German accent? Okay.
Yes, and Ivan Reitman didn't want that, and they got into a lot of arguments with each other over it, so he quit the production, and they hired Rick Moranis instead.
Oh, wow. Just take from the second city pool.
Yeah, so who you got there, Kev, for Lewis Tully?
I have Christopher Mintz-Plasse.
Oh, good old McLovin.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I could see that one too.
I was struggling too with this one. I was like, actors who have played nerds, actors who have played dorks, and he was one that popped up, and I thought, there is affection between Lewis and Janine. So I'd want to see, could there be good chemistry between this guy and Rosario Dawson? Oh, no. Well, good chemistry between this guy and Rosario Dawson because there's also the neighborly thing, that he has with Dana. But also the attraction between him and the actress I have playing Janine. And Janine also had to be able to appeal to Egon.
Movie,
well, it's the second movie.
Well, she appeals to Egon
in the first movie, yeah.
But,
right. So,
which now that I'm thinking about it, I didn't do this intentionally. But when I did Egon and Janine, I diversified in the same racial pool. And I didn't mean to do that. So maybe I should go next and do Egon.
Okay.
Go ahead. Do Egon.
So my Egon, I went with somebody who I know can be a comedian, but who can also play sort of a straight character too, who's not conventionally good looking, but is good looking enough. And like I said, I wanted to diversify my cast a little. To do the screen share, I'm going to do what Kevin's doing because it seems to be going faster that way. So for Egon, I went with John Cho, who plays Sulu in the new Star Trek films.
Okay. I get that.
He's taller. He's got the hair. And I think he can play that.
I don't get a nerdy vibe from him.
I think he can play that deadpan humor.
Okay.
Yeah. Like it's funny, but not because he's trying to be funny. It's just that sort of like just straight line humor. Like, what do you do for a hobby? I collect spores, molds, and fungus. Like that sort of thing.
Right.
So, Mike, who do you got for Egon?
So, I struggled with this, and then the light turned on. And I went, my God, why didn't I think of this before? Jim Parsons.
I had thought of Jim Parsons for Egon. He was a contender for me, and I was like, yeah, he can do straight funny. He can do like awkward funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he could be the straight guy. He could be just straight and not get stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I didn't really jump too much into the TV pool. I probably should have.
And
that's a good choice.
And thinking about it, I can see Egon, Jim Parsons doing the whole candy bar thing. You know.
Yeah.
You earned it.
Yeah, and how he would play off of your Chris Pratt and
matching the Twinkie.
Yeah,
I can tweet.
That's a big Twinkie.
So I think I aimed a little more for Harold Ramos-esque in my Egon. I decided to go with Stephen Merchant.
Oh, that's a great one. Oh, that's so good. That is so good. I didn't even think like he could have the British accent too. That doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But he's tall.
Great. Yep.
He is super tall.
Yeah,
he is.
He's super nerdy looking.
Mm-hmm.
He's very funny. He's great in Jojo Rabbit. he's pretty funny in Jojo Rabbit. So he would be. Yeah, that's a really good one, man. I didn't even think it's. Wow.
When we were talking about this last week, he popped into my head as the very first person I would recast.
Yeah, that's like the way Terry Crews popped into my head for Winston. That's awesome, man. That's the winner right there for me, I think.
Yeah.
I thought I did pretty good going out on the limb there and picking somebody kind of like off the board for that. But yeah, Stephen Merchant's perfect for Egon. My God.
I thought I was perfect. You got it one step better than I did.
That was great. That was perfect. Who should we go to next?
Kev, tell us who you want to go to.
You know what? Since we just covered Egon, I think it's time that we look at Janine. You know, seeing as how there was a chemistry between those two.
So should I do mine first because of my accidental racial profiling? So I originally had Emma Stone down because she does an impression of Janine in Zombieland. That's kind of funny. But I'm like, she's too good an actress and she's too big an actress now, I think, for such a small role.
Mm-hmm.
So I went with somebody who's good at playing not only like a sidekick character, but sort of like a funny side character. And again, I was trying to be racially diverse, but inadvertently picked somebody in the same race as John Cho because I went with Awkwafina, who plays Shang-Chi's best friend in Shang-Chi. Somebody, again, who's got comedic chops. She has that sort of acerbic sense of humor that Janine had. And she doesn't necessarily have to be the same kind of like nerdy secretary character. It could just be like somebody who just, you know, is always fighting with Venkman, is flirting with Egon.
Yeah, an attitude with the people
has that attitude problem. Yeah, and I inadvertently chose John Cho and Awkwafina to play those characters. Oh, I still think it's a good choice. I didn't do that intentionally.
No, that's a good direction.
Kev, who do you got for Janine?
Okay. Yeah, this is all outside the box for me, I guess. You will know her, but you probably don't know her. She is part of Oates, Garfunkel and Oates. It is.
Is it Kate Micucci?
Kate Micucci. Yes.
Yeah, Kate Micucci. Yeah, I like that one. She's cute. She's got that like tiny Annie Potts look to her.
I think she would play so well off of Stephen Merchant, you know, who's just oblivious to her.
He's so tall, she's so tiny. It would also be kind of funny too.
Exactly. And then if you factor in the Louis Tully character, you know, down the road, which I know was the second movie, but like down the road, that kind of works too, you know. So. I don't know who Mike chose, but another name just popped in my head as you were talking about Kate Micucci. But let's see what Mike has first.
So I didn't go with you know, if she looks the part. I want to know if she acted the part. I think this one acts the part. I can see her going, Ghostbusters, what do you want? You know, and having that attitude with Venkman. Kat, Dennings.
Kat Dennings.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, she's
I
definitely
can
not.
see having the.
She definitely
Yeah.
doesn't look the part, but she definitely will play the
No.
part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely
She
will
could
play
pull
the
off
part.
New York or
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
It's the attitude I was going for.
and the attitude.
Yes.
Yeah,
She
I
can have
just Allison Hannigan just popped in my head,
it.
and I feel like she could be sweet, but she could also be like sarcastic, and I felt like that would be a good one too.
Just so you guys know, I've moved to my second beer.
Okay.
It is from Cigar City Brewing. It's called Frostproof. It is a Belgian style white. 6% alcohol by volume.
What is Cigar City Brewing, you said?
Yeah, Cigar City Brewing.
Where's that at?
I gotta see if I can see it. I can't even read it. Born in Tampa, Florida.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
I never heard of them. I like cigars and I like beer. That'd be cool.
Not bad.
So let's see. Let's recap real quick. We did Venkman. We did Winston Zedmore. We did Egon.
Yep.
We did Dana Barrett, Lewis Tully, Janine.
We're
So
down
we have to do Ray Stantz.
Ray and
Walter Peck.
right.
Ray, Peck, and then Gozer if we'd like to throw a bonus one in there. So, Mike, why don't you go first for Ray?
Ray, I had a toss up for this one, and it took me to thinking, and I went with Seth Rogen.
I get that. I see that.
I thought of him too as well. He was on my mind.
It was him or Jack Black. And I went with Seth Rogen.
Seth Rogen's a good cause. Jack Black, I don't know as much if he'd fill it as well. Seth Rogen would.
He might have been
Seth Rogen.
over the top. I thought maybe.
Yeah.
I also thought like Zach Galifianakis would have fit that part too if I didn't pick him for Lewis Tully either. But I'm like, he's just too quirky, man. I don't want him in my Ghostbusters movie. So yeah. I went in a totally different direction. Yeah, but you said Seth Rogen. Yeah, I think that fits to me. Yeah. Kev, who do you got?
I went with Zach Braff.
Oh, okay.
Okay. I was just thinking about he does a lot of his own kind of independent, or not very they're not blockbusters, but I took what I remember of him from Scrubs and how you can be, innocent but funny and form the relationship like Venkman has with Stantz, and I just thought that would fit in pretty well.
Yeah, I can see that he's kind of like a Ray character on Scrubs.
Yeah.
So my original choice, I was originally going to go with Paul Giamatti.
Okay.
I thought that would be like an interesting choice for Ray, but then I'm like, I think he might be a little too old for the character at this point.
He aged out, yeah.
Yeah, he aged out. So then I went in a completely different direction, and I cast Bill Hader, who is a Saturday Night Live alum. He's currently starring on the HBO show Barry, which is a dark comedy. So he's definitely got the comedy chops. He's definitely got the acting chops. And he's got a quirky look to him, sort of like a Dan Akroyd-ish look. And I think he would be able to play, like you said, that sort of innocent comedy,
right?
Opposite, like my Robert Downey Jr. Venkman,
right? With a little bit of nerd to him. They got to be able to pull off a little bit of nerd because that is Venkman. Stantz was the one who was all into the paranormal. He was the yin to Egon's yang, he was.
I also feel like one of the things with the Venkman and Stantz relationship too was that they're friends, they're really close, but you almost feel like Venkman kind of just tolerates him at times.
Yeah,
and I kind of feel like that.
A little bit of bullying.
Robert Downey Jr. Downey Jr. is really good at. Yeah,
what did you do?
Robert Downey Jr. is really good at that sort of like tolerating other characters sort of performance.
Right.
So that is our main cast. So we have to do Walter Peck. It is true, Your Honor. This man has no dick.
I'll go first on this
Who
one.
was played by William Atherton in the original film. Yes, Michael, go ahead.
Because this is the only one that I could think of that could play a really good dick character.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Stiller.
I can see that.
He's played the dick character before.
He'd be like White Goodman if White Goodman was in Ghostbusters.
Because nowadays you don't have that one guy that always plays the dick character.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have that guy anymore, so you have to find.
I had a couple on mine. Maybe.
I had a few. I had one that really popped out, and that's who I went with. But
who's that?
Yeah, pop out, he has no dick.
Yes, this man has no dick. Go ahead, Kev. What do you got?
So I thought of just actors who played bad guys that I just pretty much despised. You know, they played crummy, smarmy, sniveling guys and they do it really, really well. And I came up with Jeremy Piven.
Jeremy Piven.
Yeah.
He's also slimy in real life.
Lee, I just thought of another perfect guy for this role.
Who?
The Miz.
The Miz. If he were alive, I probably would have chose Alan Rickman.
Yes.
Yeah. Alan Rickman would have done it really well.
But I like both your choices, but I went in a different direction. Again, I went with somebody who is not known for his comedic chops. But then again, you don't have to be a comedian to play this role. You just have to be really good at playing the villain. And so this is who I decided to go with for this role. The actor Michael Shannon.
Oh, yeah. Zod.
Yeah.
Zod, yes. Michael Shannon, I think, plays the villain in like 98% of the movies that he's in. He's the villain in Man of Steel. He's the villain in Shape of Water. He was one of the villains on Boardwalk Empire. Like he's a guy that's good at playing those sort of swarmy, like, you know, characters that you don't want to like cross paths with.
You know, I saw the picture, and the first thing I thought of is, we ever redo a James Bond, he's going to be Jaws.
Oh yeah, he's got that face for it. He's got a face that's just so like, you look at him and you're like, there's no way he's not the villain. Like,
yeah.
So
I thought of somebody else. Hold on, I thought of somebody else.
For Walter Peck.
Yeah, equally as smarmy and you know, as Jeremy Piven. It's why can't I think of his name now? The guy that was in The Phantom and
Billy Zane.
Billy Zane.
Yeah, I can see that.
I can see that too.
He just popped into my head for a second.
You know who else might be an interesting choice for this? And it's an off the books choice, because he's not really somebody who plays villain characters, but I feel like he has the look that he could play a villain if he wanted, and that's Rami Malek, who played Freddie Mercury in the Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
Because he played the villain in the last Bond movie.
Mm-hmm.
So like he might be able to do that sort of like dickish villain character.
Yeah.
Look at Sean Bean.
And Sean Bean, yeah. But Sean Bean has to die. You can't. He'd have to drown in the marshmallows at the end. So I did a bonus casting because I did Gozer. I know you guys. I don't know. I know, Kev, you said you could just throw one out there.
Yeah, I got one that I was thinking of, but go ahead.
So I'll show you my bonus casting for Gozer, because I feel like this actress kind of looks like Gozer even when she doesn't put the makeup on to play Gozer. And this is who I decided to go with for Gozer the Gozerian. Tilda Swinton.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I can see that.
I feel like she's a quirky enough actress that's a role she could definitely play.
Hey, Lee, I think you have just as many Disney actors as I do.
Really? Like MCU actors?
MCU actors as I do.
So, should we do...
I thought of...
Oh, you got a Gozer? Oh, Lady Gaga.
Lady Gaga.
Lady Gaga.
Lady goes.
Lady Gaga is the Gozer. She's Gaga Gozer. Lady Gaga. All right.
Lady Gaga.
So let's recap here and see and like put it through a little vote. So in order to make this work, don't vote for your own, let's say.
Right.
Okay.
So Peter Venkman, I had Robert Downey Jr.
Mm-hmm.
Mike had
Chris
Pratt, and you had Ryan Reynolds.
Yes.
I probably would vote for Pratt.
Yeah, I'd probably have to go for Pratt too.
And I would go with Robert Downey.
Okay, so but I can't vote for my own, so in that case, Pratt would be our Peter Venkman. For Winston Zedmore, I had Terry Crews. Mike had
Anthony Mackie.
And I had Ken Jeong.
And Ken Jeong.
Oh.
I'm voting Ken Jeong just because I would love to see that.
I'm voting Terry Crews.
Oh. I really want to vote for my own, but I can't.
I know.
So Terry Crews.
Terry Crews. Although I would say Ken Jeong if Terry Crews isn't available.
Yeah.
For Egon, I had John Cho. Mike had Sheldon.
Jim Parsons.
Mm-hmm.
And Kevin had Stephen Merchant, and I'm just I'm closing the voting now. Stephen Merchant.
Yeah.
I like my John Cho choice, but Stephen Merchant all the way. For Ray Stantz, I had Bill Hader.
Mm-hmm.
Mike had Seth Rogen, and Kevin had
Zach Braff.
Yeah. So
I'd probably go with Seth Rogen.
I would go with Rogen.
Mm-hmm.
So right now we got Chris Pratt as Peter Venkman.
Mm-hmm.
We have Terry Crews, possibly Ken Jeong as Winston Zedmore. We got Stephen Merchant as Egon. We got who did we just say? Seth Rogen for Ray.
Ray.
For the role of Dana Barrett, I had Amy Adams.
I had Rosario Dawson.
I had Charlize Theron.
And Mike had Charlize Theron. As much as I love Rosario, I think Charlize Theron is a really good choice.
Yeah, I would go with Charlize.
So we have Charlize Theron as Dana Barrett. For Janine Melnitz, I had Aquafina.
I had Kate Dennings.
Kat Dennings.
And I had Kate Minucci.
Kate Micucci.
God,
I want to vote for my own, but I kind of like the Kate Micucci one.
Yeah, I go with Kate Micucci.
So Kate Micucci.
I would love to vote for my own.
And I would love to vote for my own too. Now we will vote for our own. Nobody's gonna.
I
know. For Walter Peck, I had Michael Shannon.
Mm-hmm.
I had Ben
Stiller, and Kevin had
Jeremy Piven.
Yep.
I think I'd have to go with Michael Shannon.
Because if I can't vote for my own, I would have to go with probably Kev's choice.
So would I, Kev's choice.
So Jeremy Piven then is our Walter Peck.
Okay.
Louis Tully, I had Charlie Day.
I had Ken Jeong.
And Kevin had.
Who did I have?
I think you had Zach Braff, was it? No, it was.
No, it was Christopher Mintz-Plasse.
Christopher Mintz-Plasse. You know what? Just because we got to have Ken Jeong in this movie, I'm voting for Ken Jeong.
Ken Jeong.
So Ken Jeong gets the backup role of Louis Tully. And our last character was Gozer the Gozerian, who I'm the only person who put one out there, and that was Tilda Swinton or Lady Gaga.
Oh, Lady Gaga. I'm going with Liz.
You going with who?
I'm going with
You're going with Tilda Swinton.
Tilda Swinton, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that one wasn't really one of our originals anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So that's our cast for the 1984 recasting for nowadays in 2022 Ghostbusters.
Who would you want as Slimer? I know Slimer was based off of John Belushi, but who would you...
It was based off John Belushi.
It was based off of John Belushi.
Maybe.
How about the one you've been saying all night?
Zach Galifianakis?
Yeah.
No, you know what? Since he was based on John Belushi, who was already dead at the time that this movie was made, so he can use a dead actor. So I'm going with Chris Farley.
Yes, that's what I was thinking of too.
Chris Farley is my Slimer.
In a van down by the river.
Fat Slimer in a little coat.
Oh, I don't know if you guys were counting, but I got 4 of the 8.
Yeah.
My cast got put in.
That's only because we couldn't vote for our own.
There were some hard choices between us.
That is a tough man. Yeah. So like the recast, the 2.0 guys did Shawshank one episode, and I'm like, man, that's a fucking task right there. But yeah, Ghostbusters is pretty tough. But it was just fun. I had fun doing this, and it was and I had to kind of stretch my imagination a little bit. I wish I had thought of Stephen Merchant myself, man. I'm pissed at that. Was a perfect casting. My God. Thank you for joining us tonight, everybody, for episode 69, Bill and Ted's favorite episode. Tonight we tried our best to recast the classic 1984 comedy Ghostbusters, and hopefully we didn't screw it up too badly. Thanks again for joining us here at the crossroads between Pickled and Fermented. Don't forget to join us next week for episode 70. Episode 70, that's a milestone episode for us, episode 70. For that episode, we are going to be talking about our favorite movie insults, our favorite ways to hurt somebody's feelings in movies. We haven't decided yet on the format. I'm thinking we might try to do a bracket for this one. We haven't done the bracket in a while, so that might be an idea. We'll think about it. We'll see what happens. But join us next week for episode 70, Best Movie Insults. We hope you enjoyed listening to this episode as much as we enjoyed recording it for you. I'm Leo.
I'm Kevin.
I'm Mike.
Make sure you drop us a line at filmsandfermentation@gmail.com or visit linktree.com/filmsandfermentation for all of our podcast and social media links. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers.
It was pretty funny, especially Indiana Jones and the search for more pudding. It's still my favorite line.
I am ready.
I'm ready to go.
Kind of glad we did that mini pod last night because I was given it was 23 minutes. God knows how long this episode's going to be.
No kidding.
On its own. So
I mean, we're only talking about 8 actors or actresses. How long could it possibly be?
Well, as long as I'm recording, it'll be okay, I guess.
8 actresses and actresses each.
Yeah.